Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how much we love digging into the juicy stuff, right? And this one, well, let's just say it's a topic that hits close to home for a lot of us.
Oh, absolutely.
Love and money.
Yeah.
Two things that, let's be honest, can cause a good amount of excitement and a fair share of arguments in any relationship. Am I right?
Right.
So for today's deep dive, we're tackling the age-old question. Can financial stability actually buy you a happier marriage? I gotta say, going through all the research you sent, some of the findings were pretty eye-opening.
It's a question, like you said, that I think we've all kind of pondered at some point or another,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But before we even get to that happy part, maybe we should back up a little, huh?
Okay, yeah.
What are we even talking about when we say financial stability in a relationship?
What does that even mean? Because we all know it's not as simple as like, oh, you've got a fat bank account, you're good to go. Like, that's not it.
No.
Right.
Definitely not the whole picture.
There's more to it.
Yeah.
So looking at the articles and all the research, some of the kind of common themes that popped up were things like, obviously, having that steady income.
Having that stability.
Having some savings tucked away for a rainy day.
Mhm.
Budgeting was a big one.
Being on the same page.
Being on the same page, exactly. And, ideally not drowning in debt.
Right.
But I think what really struck me, and maybe this is where the surprise came in, is that it's not so much about the actual dollar amount.
Interesting.
It's more about the feeling of security.
Security, absolutely. And that feeling, that you and your partner can kind of weather those storms, right?
Right.
Life throws curveballs.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And it's about knowing that financially you're in a place, hopefully, where those curveballs don't totally derail you as a couple.
That makes sense. Because, think about it. When you're constantly stressed about money, we've all been there, right? That credit card bill comes and suddenly it's like the room feels a little smaller, tensions are high.
You're not sleeping well.
You're not sleeping well, exactly. And those little arguments about like who spent what on what start popping up. One article actually mentioned that statistically, finances are one of the biggest sources of conflict in marriages, which I guess makes sense.
It's right up there.
Right, it's right up there. But it made me wonder, is it the money itself?
Right.
Or is it the kind of underlying lack of communication, lack of shared goals that the money brings up?
That's such a good point because it really does. And I see this all the time. It's rarely just about the money itself.
Yeah.
It's the emotions tied to it. Like I remember I worked with this couple a while back, and financially they had very little. They were really struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. But what they did have, and it was really remarkable, was rock-solid communication.
Wow.
They talked about everything. They were so on the same page about their goals. Short-term, long-term, everything. And because of that, even with very little in the bank, they had this incredible sense of support and understanding.
That's amazing. And it ties back to what you said about security, right? Like when you have that financial stability, at least to a certain degree, it kind of frees you up, I imagine, to focus on the good stuff. Other things that really matter, like is it, you guys want to buy a house together, you want to start a family, or even just be able to take that vacation you've been dreaming about and actually enjoy it without, stressing over every single expense.
Exactly. It opens up those possibilities, and it takes away that kind of that weight, that burden of constantly worrying, can we do this? Can we afford this?
Right. And it's not like money solves every problem.
No, definitely not a magic solution.
Right. There's so much more to a marriage, to a relationship. We all know that. But having that solid foundation, that feeling of security, it certainly doesn't hurt, does it?
No, it definitely creates a more stable environment.
Now, I'm curious, because you work with couples all the time, right?
I do.
And I imagine finances are a big part of what you guys talk about.
Oh, all the time.
So what happens when you've got two individuals, right, coming together, and their financial personalities are polar opposite?
All right. And you see that all the time.
I bet.
Where one person's a spender, one person's the saver, or one's more risk averse, doesn't want to touch investments, and the other's all about it.
Right. It's like that classic, opposites attract, but with money. So how do you even begin to navigate those bigger financial decisions?
Right. And you have those big ones looming, like buying a house.
Exactly. Or even deciding how much to spend on a car or, those bigger ticket items. How do you navigate those kinds of decisions when your money styles are night and day?
Well, and again, it goes back to, it sounds so cliche, but communication.
That's true, though.
It really is. But it's not just talking at each other, you know?
Right. It's listening. It's listening and it's understanding. What are those underlying values, anxieties when it comes to money? Like, were you raised in a family where money was tight? Does that make you more risk averse now? Or were you raised in a family where, spending was very free and easy?
Right? That shapes you.
It shapes you. It does. And
Yeah.
so understanding, okay, what are your individual dreams?
Uh-huh.
And then how do those intersect with that shared vision for your future as a couple?
Right. Because those are important conversations to have. Because, I mean, if one person's dream is to, like, retire early,
Exactly.
and the other person's like, yeah, but I want to travel the world and, like, eat at all the fancy restaurants.
Those are two very different goals.
Those are two very different goals.
Classic.
And those are important conversations to have up front. So it's not just about, the actual act of budgeting together, although that's important. It's about figuring out what matters most to each of you
Right.
and finding ways to, like, make those goals align, right? Absolutely. And sometimes it's about compromise too. Like you said, if one person's really adamant about early retirement,
Yeah.
those fancy dinners might need to be a once in a while thing.
Right, exactly. You got to prioritize. So much to think about. But I think that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
It is. It's more than just, can money buy you happiness in your
Huh.
relationship? It's way more nuanced than that.
Way more nuanced, which is why we love doing these deep dives. And, as we wrap things up here, I'm kind of left with this lingering question.
Okay, I like it.
If it's not just about, like, living in the lap of luxury,
Right.
right, or on the flip side, barely making ends meet,
Yeah.
what role does money actually play in building a truly fulfilling and happy relationship? Something for all of us to ponder, right?
It is. It is, yeah.
Lots to think about.
Lots to think about, absolutely.
Well, as always, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time.
Thanks, everyone.